Hi everyone. Um, Back from my funeral this morning, and I'm feeling pretty good about all of that. And I believe that it's been a matter of grace. So I have some things that I thought we could share a little bit. I sure wish that we could talk back and forth and it was a true chatting and it wasn't just me giving you a perspective of something. And the reason for that is if we could do a true chatting, then when I say something, I would really have an idea of how it feeds into you. And then how that feeds you, you would have a response to that. And it gives me a picture then of how my own life, how I have to live my own life. It would show me how that relates to another person. We're going to find a way to do that. In fact, maybe the next time I do a YouTube, I may be able to have something together that we can take a better shot at that. First thing I want you to know, whenever I start, and these usually happen at the beginning of a YouTube, whenever I start, there's a very good chance I'll have a faux pas. I'll never edit them. Because, baby, what you see is what you get. So a faux pas is a faux pas. And I have just a few short things I wanted to blow over before I move on to our little prayer book. I wanted to just touch a little bit on Lisa's idea of, when I say Lisa, in this particular instance, I'm speaking of our little Lisa in Pennsylvania. Lisa sent me a series of faith tags, which I had mentioned before. And there are a couple of them that I especially liked. And I'm asking you to reflect on these for yourself and throw that back to me, how you fit into this. The first one is, this is a very simple one. And so I just want to know about this, and I'll tell you why in a second. What religious articles do you wear on your person? The reason I want to know that is because most of you are already all consecrated to the Blessed Mother. Some of you may even be consecrated at some other levels also. But because of that consecration to the Blessed Mother, one of the requests in that consecration is that we wear a medal of the miraculous medal. If you're ever short on that, short on a miraculous medal and you want one, I have several. They are not sterling silver, but they are not pewter either. They are they are silver plated. So they're not really chintzy, even though they're not the most expensive. But I'm more than happy to see that any of you get one of these medals. And anyone who's consecrated to Mary should be wearing. That's one of the requests to be consecrated, is that we wear a medal of the miraculous medal. Number one. That's number one. Number two is, last time when we discussed the word made flesh a little bit, there's another aspect to that. Where we were the last time, we really touched on the biblical relationship of an explanation and living out of the word made flesh. But we really didn't touch on how we address that in today's world for our own personal selves. And this is what I've learned being with the women that I deal with here locally. As each of them speak, and they share whatever happens in their lives, And incidentally, that's not implying they share their dirty laundry. I don't imply that. I mean they share the way that they have been able to confront their life, and not only confront it, but master it. Some of that has to do with how we think. And then some of it has to do with how we've learned to live from our nurturing from our families. A little bit of input from both of those things. There's a word that the church uses, it's called predetermination. And predetermination means that when you are conceived, there is a disposition that you are conceived with that has nothing to do with how you're raised or how smart you are, has nothing to do with your physical characteristics, has nothing to do with that. But it has to do with what God grants you to enable you to live out all of these things that the Father knows at the time and even before. And remember, in the womb, the Father already knew you. So in all of these things, then, the Father, in that predetermination, grants to you, in your soul, the ability through providence to live all these things out. So let's take a look then. The Word made flesh. How does that apply to us? Now, we certainly know how it applies to Jesus. And it's not the same, of course. We have, when we speak to one another, when I hear you and you email me or you give me a perspective that you have on something, I take that upon myself and I internalize it. That means I think about it and I pray about it. And if I'm not understanding it very well, I email you back and I say, what did you say? Tell me that again. And so then you do that again. And I take it upon myself again to see how it fits. And as it fits, like a puzzle piece, as it can do that, then it's mine. It becomes a part of who I am. Now remember where this originally comes from. You have given this to me in your words. So as I take this on, now I'm living a little differently. It's broadened me. It's made me capable of understanding something a little bit better. But it makes me capable of understanding something a little bit better because I've taken the words that you said within my own soul and fit it with what I already have known. So now I'm a broader person. My soul has a broader entity. Actually, what this is this is taking your words, the words you've given me, and it doesn't matter if they're emailed or whatever, those words that you give me, and in taking them on myself, then I'm fleshing it out. Now think about that. What's happening? I am taking your words, and now they're part of me. And now we have your words on me, within me, and they're making themselves part of my own flesh. Your word, my flesh. And then when I respond to you and we grow together, this is what happens. This is what spiritual growth is about. So you take upon yourselves one another. And I'm very aware that we don't just do this with everyone and anyone. It has to have a fit, and there has to be a trust. So we trust the people that we take these pieces from, and because of that trust, we can evolve into this broader person than we were before we met you. So today, I am more than I was before I met you. Each of you, not one of you, literally all of you. What I'm saying here is this concept of the Word made flesh, we do even to this day. We just don't do it as profoundly. And what we take upon ourselves to become the Word made flesh isn't like Jesus in the sense that it doesn't have that infinite bond with the Trinity. And yet there is a link. There's a link. But we're not one of the entire Trinity. Father Don does this thing. We're not one of this. We're not one of it, but we're a piece of it. Okay, back to Lisa and what she asked. What articles do we wear in our persons? What do you wear? What you wear on your person tells me a great deal about you. If you wear some kind of a symbol of the Sorrowful Mother, I can suppose that there's something in your life or in your soul and in your heart that hurts. There's an ache, a longing, whatever you want to call that, however you want to name that, it comes to that. If some people, for a while there, and I'm seeing it's not so much anymore, but in the early 70s, there was a lot of crosses with Jesus showing himself as lifting off the cross. It was supposed to be a symbol of not the resurrected. It was supposed to be a symbol of the Assumption. No, I'm sorry, I'm still saying it wrong. A symbol of Jesus not on the cross. I never really was comfortable with that. And I wasn't comfortable with it because all of the crosses that we have to bear in our life, I needed to believe that Jesus carried that with me. And to do that, I had to believe that he was crucified. To believe he was crucified, I had to see it. It's like, I'm from Missouri, show me, the show me state. So I would, but that's what I notice when I see someone, when a person wears something. That's what I notice. You can tell their dedication, where that is. So what do I notice about myself? What's very important? I got so darn many medals that I wear, and they're all the Blessed Mother. I have one that's Our Lady of Guadalupe. I have one that's the Miraculous Medal. I have another this little thing that I got from my friend in Kalamazoo. It's the hearts of Jesus and Mary, and actually it's the Lord reaching out. It's probably more like Divine Mercy, but it's not labeled as any of those things. I think it's probably a vintage kind of expression. But I loved it, and so I wear it all the time. And so that's where I am, and that's where my accent or emphasis is in my soul. That's what I take in the easiest, and that's what I hold, and it broadens me the easiest. There is an identity of the person of Mary, or Jesus, really, of all of our heavenly entities, and even now, in this day and age of ourselves. And it goes like this. If you have a friend or a parent or whatever, if you have another person that's sitting next to you, and you may be sure that I'm the same way, so even as you look at me in front of you, you would, if you could see me, you could see the same aspect. On one side of my face, because I have a part on one side of my hairline's different. On the other side of my face, I have more hair. On the back of my head, if you could see the back of my head, you'd see I have more waves than I wish I had. There are some areas I have to really control because they'd like to be curly. You would see also that I have my hair cut very short and back. I keep it like that because it's little trouble. My husband calls that my nun hairdo. So if someone is on my right hand, what they're going to see about me is very different than this person on the left hand. So the person on the right of me, if they speak and tell the person on my left what they're seeing on the right-hand side they're not going to be able to tell them what that person sees. So the person who's sitting on my left never has to get up off their chair and come over to see what I look like on the right. They never have to do that. This is true of everyone. This is true in the Holy Family. The seed of our life keeps us where we are. Our life does that. We can't just get up and run around wherever we want to. Our life is like a seat, and it keeps us there. And our perspective and what we see from that seat is going to be different than anyone else sees. So if you have the Holy Family in front of you, it's the same thing. If you're in back of it, you're going to see the beautiful robes of Joseph and his staff, and you're going to say, oh yeah, he has a staff, and yeah, his hair is like so-and-so, and you're going to say that, and the person who's sitting in front of them is saying, oh, is that what he looks like? Now remember, you're trusting this person who's sitting at the back. You're trusting them, and you know them well enough that you can trust. So they're telling you something you would never know from your seat. So what happens then is that person who sits on the other side of life teaches you what happens from what's happening in you. So we become then broader by listening to one another. We teach one another what heaven has given us. There's a phrase, I hope I wrote it down here. Let me see. There's something about, I read it just in my meditation book. I don't think I kept it. It was how heaven is such this beautiful place. I'll find it and I can email it another time. But remember this, that when you speak to someone and what they're telling you is coming from the seat of their life, because where they're sitting is not where you're sitting, you can gain a great deal from them. In return, they can gain a great deal from you. I'm telling you this because this is how I began to learn and understand the importance of these men and women that I've learned to know in our own parish, and we belong to a certain group, and we have progressed and now find ourselves understanding that we can pray together, and what we see when we pray together, like in our little books, isn't going to be the same, but it's going to bring us to the same. And last time we did a little YouTube, we talked about the custody of the hearts, and that's the mission. So we can each read that mission, and it's not going to say quite the same thing to any of us. And it's not going to say quite the same thing, because how we're going to live it is just a hinge different. But because we're going to share how we're going to live it, we're all going to be able to understand each other better. Okay, that's enough about the mission. That's just kind of a review. I wanted to come to the consecration. What does consecration mean? That's in our table of contents. I'm not going to cover mental prayer because Father Lipka wants to go over that with all of you on mental prayer. So I'm going to just let that lie until he gets a chance to do that. But on consecration, first of all, notice in your booklets, there are 3 different prayers here. First of all, we start off with the little picture of Jesus, or I'm sorry, of Mary. I did that on purpose. I put her in front because we are all consecrated, and in that consecration, we're coming to Jesus through Mary. So, if that's true, we're coming to Jesus through Mary, then the first page should be her. So we're coming to Jesus, who is the last page, and we started with her. The consecration that we learned about, there's one consecration prayer here, and you notice when you read some of you may have read de Montfort's, and some of you did the 33 days. I think more of you did 33 days. It doesn't really matter. It's still consecration of the Blessed Mother. But anyway, both of them had many, many prayer pages that you could have done or can do on consecration to Mary. I included 3 on mine and to send to you in this book. One of them is from the 33 days. One of them is from de Montfort. And the third one is actually from a consecration. It's from St. Paul's Street Evangelization. They're out of Chicago. But there's many, many more. I just put 3 in there because that's all I had at the moment. I could have filled up this book with just prayers from consecration to Mary. You can put in, if you find one that you like, you can put in as many prayers to consecration to Mary as you choose. It seems to I don't do that because I don't want to fill up my book. I've got other stuff I want to put in there. But understand that consecration to Mary is not a one-shot thing. Also, the importance of consecration to Mary is that we become one through her. We exchange ourselves with our soul, our heart and soul, with hers. So our heart and soul, when I use the word soul and heart, in my mind, they're interchangeable. To me, my heart is the soul of me. So I'm not sure how. That would be a good thing. I would like you to tell me, email me sometime and tell me if your perception of that is the same or if you have a little different view of that, because I don't know why I think that. I can't tell you. I just know that when I say heart and I say soul, in my mind, I'm thinking of the same thing. So the heart and soul of me then, in consecration, basically, I rest it in the heart and soul of Mary. And that consecration then, that's what enables me to trust, because I trust her. That enables me to trust that she's going to take me and all of my needs and all of my prayers, all of the things, all my merits, and give them to him. And I can trust that she's going to do that. When she does that, they're going to get filtered out. And a lot of this that I'm telling you is kind of a review. You have, don't forget that on some days, there's going to be some days when the Blessed Mother is just going to lavish your family with all of these merits that you have given her. I cannot explain why that would work like that some days. I don't know. Maybe Father Lipka can help us about that. But I do know that some days it seems, for some, not days, sometimes it's even longer than that, it seems that there's nothing that I have deserved to get anywhere, and we get nothing. But then all of a sudden, we are lavished with these wonderful graces that she's been gathering up for only heaven knows how long, and it's our turn. It's as simple as that. It's our turn. She promised. She promised. It's our turn. So sometimes she saves some of us, and sometimes it's tomorrow that she's going to save some of us. But consecration to Mary does that. And consecration to Mary is going to save us. It's in consecration to Mary, in that consecration, that we're going to learn how to be one with God, because she was. She was one with God. She was one with Jesus, her son, and literally gave him her body and her entire gene pool. His entire gene pool came from her. There was no other gene pool that he had to come from. So she gave everything to him. So she was one with him. The Holy Spirit espoused himself to her so that she can become pregnant with the Word, because after all, this was not something that everyone could become pregnant with, the Word. And then, of course, the Father. The oneness of the Father comes from the fact that she was born with no original sin. So she was specifically born and selected for this one job, and she was irreplaceable. And I remember when I first became Catholic, I remember one of the things that impressed me. I remember thinking, if Gabriel had come to Mary and said to her, oh, and by the way, I don't think you knew about this ahead of time, but you're going to be able to have the child, Jesus, the Messiah. You're going to get to have him and raise him, and that's going to be your job. If she had said no, what do we think? Do we think that Gabriel would have said, I'll go down to the next house. All I have to do is find some young girl, and as long as she's never been with a man yet, it'll work. We'll just go to the next house. No. Wouldn't happen. And all you have to do to think about it, why it couldn't happen, why Gabriel couldn't have just moved on, is because she herself was born without original sin. The only way Gabriel could have moved on to someone else is that everyone was born without original sin. Does that make any sense? That there was a generation where we had a bunch of young women hanging around that were all without original sin? Sure doesn't make sense to me. So there was only one. She was conceived for that. And this remember we just spoke shortly before about predetermination? Mary had that too. She was predetermined genetically to have this child. God knew before she was born that she could only say yes. There wasn't a no. She couldn't say no. It wasn't even possible for her. And God knew that. So we had this child then that was suddenly born from this beautiful little girl. Consecration allows you to have an understanding of that. I don't know how to say this to you to make sense, but I really believe that there's a spiritual pregnancy that all of you as lay people being drawn to oneness and God, I really believe that you're going to experience a pregnancy in some kind of an apostolate. And that's what has drawn you to pray a daily rule every single day, because it's the only way you know for sure you're faithful. You know you're faithful. God knows you're faithful. But you have to know you're faithful. So you're willing to do that. And once you're willing to do that daily prayer, the grace of custody of your heart will entrust you with the hearts of those who are vulnerable. And that's the apostolate that you can be pregnant with. And that's the word. That word becomes yours. That word becomes you. God bless you, kids. I've been on so much longer than I wanted to. I love you very, very much. And I love you because I trust you. I promise you that. I trust you. And I long to see you. And the day will come when I beg God that I will. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.